here with Jenna Guarneri, the CEO of JMGPR, and we're talking about public relations for startups. And one of the questions I wanted to ask you, Jenna, is when is the right time for a startup to hire a PR firm? Is it before they launch in the US? Is it when they're just in incubation stage? Is it before? Is it a year later? When do you think is a good time, or is it really case by case?
It's case by case. So for instance, the company who's about to launch, sometimes they'll bring on the PR team to help with the messaging, to help flesh out the key message points, the branding, to make sure it's all cohesive. So that way, when the launch officially happens, there's also prep and press around the actual official launch week or launch month. So you can go in hand. And then there's also times where I've seen startups that aren't ready for PR. So perhaps their messaging isn't clear, they're confused in their branding, they're changing their website, changing perhaps their overall branding, and they're not ready yet to put out a message into the media space, because if a placement runs and it has branding and then you change it, you're putting out mixed messaging that you can't delete later on. So it's important to be very clear with your messaging. Also to have your purpose clearly defined. And then also it can be to make sure that if the company is about to launch, that's okay to not have the product available just yet, but that it should be available, product or service should be available relatively soon after. So that way the person reading it can engage with you and ask a follow-up question and potentially purchase your service or product from you. Also, you want to make sure that there's a spokesperson available who can do the interviews and who's comfortable with speaking to the media. There's two levels of comfort. It can be doing video interviews. That takes a whole nother skill level, and not everyone is at that. But as long as they can do phone interviews and email Q&As, you want to make sure that this person who's available has the time for it and who's really good at it too. There's a certain rapport with media relations, so you want to make sure that person has some sort of comfort level.
So it sounds like it's very important to develop a fluid communication with your firm if you're a client, and to be open to suggestions. A lot of people come when I know my clients do this when they launch a US startup, they have a specific decision already made as to how the vision of how the company will be and how they will conduct all these aspects. But they really need to be open and communicate. And so what are some of the other things that are important for establishing a successful relationship with your firm?
Communication is a key thing, and that's probably one of the most important, because you need to have that established line of communication, because you're on the ground, you're in the company. You can't just hire a PR firm and then expect them to make magic without materials and updated materials and constant content that is fed from you being inside the company. So it's important to have that trust with your agency that you feel like you can consistently update them. Overshare, I find, is better, because you may not realize what the PR person realizes and what might be a key story, right? A golden ticket, a golden media story that you're looking for that would really just be something that the media person is going to latch onto. And you might not realize what that is until you share it. So it's better to just give as many stats, up-to-date information about the company to your PR team. And you want to also just consistently provide them updated content. But also with that too, is you want to make sure that when you hire a PR firm, you have the point person on your team to work with them on a daily basis. That's a key thing, right? You want to make sure people respond to them in a timely manner, because if a reporter has a story and they're on deadline, they have 2 hours to get back to them, and it's a really good media outlet, you want to make sure you respond to them in a timely fashion. Otherwise, they'll find the other person who responds in 2 seconds. There's always somebody who'll respond quicker. So you want to make sure that the person on your team is accessible to them, can provide them up with updates, and then also work with them for securing and coordinating the interviews in a timely manner.
So this is one of the things that you mentioned about the differences between PR and marketing. Marketing, you can develop short and long-term strategies, but it sounds like PR is really moment by moment, and you have to be ready for anything that comes up in order to take advantage of that and be able to promote it. Is that right?
That's exactly it. And we kind of laugh on our team, because we always say our jobs are made up of a lot of small tasks that lead to something bigger, but the project is never done. It's just one item affects the other. So even if you get one press hit, what press begets press. So you could take that press hit and aim towards getting something larger. You could share with a larger media outlet. Hey, did you see this story that ran? And it also just adds more credibility when you're pitching. So our job is never done, and it's just made up of a lot of key strategic tasks that happen over the long term. So we work both short term and long term. So
Okay.
short term media outlets that work and they book next week. There could be podcasts, blogs, newspapers, things that book on a quicker basis. Whereas, say, print magazines are more long term. They book their stories 6 months out, but because they're so hard to obtain, it takes a longer relationship to build with those people. So we work with in tandem with both long term and short term strategies.
If someone has questions about potential strategies, they want to pick your brain to see if they can work with you, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
They can reach us on social media at JMG_PR on Instagram. They can follow me on LinkedIn, and they can also go on our website, jmgpr.com.
Great. Thank you so much, Jenna.
Yeah.